All right, let's wait no longer and discuss yesterday's result against Crystal Palace. It was 2-2. In the end, I've put on the title, it felt like drop points. I've rewatched the game. It still feels like drop points. It still feels. Look, I mean, I thought at times West Ham, we played some really good stuff. I think there was an element of sloppiness there, and I'm not going to sit there and deny it. And I think anyone that went to the ground yesterday saw that, and the transitions at times were a little bit sloppy. But again, we were creating chances. We had opportunities. There's a period in the first half for around 10, 15 minutes where, listen, a bit of fortune or the right movement in the box and West Ham go and get the second. And I don't know. I mean, I've said in the past about West Ham's game management, and I'm not convinced that's the right type of terminology. I said that about Monday. I think we had a really good game plan against Leicester, and we come up against the Palace side that, to be fair, even myself, I didn't quite see them causing us enough issues offensively. But where they really hurt West Ham was the press. It wasn't necessarily even the press from the front, because obviously some sides do that, Liverpool, Chelsea as well, but they triggered it in the midfield. And I think a lot of us yesterday would have seen Declan Rice struggle in particular. And as the game went on and it felt like Palace's energy levels were much higher than West Ham's, it became evident that we couldn't really compete with it and deal with it. Now, I think West Ham did adapt probably after the first 20 minutes. I think there were times where we were a little bit sloppy, that Palace were getting on the ball. And then once we'd really understood that concept and we started pushing from the front a little bit more, we know that we're 4-4-2 out of possession. When it went back to the goalkeeper, they were playing it long. We were regaining possession. We were at them again. And then it became a question of, could we break them down? Now, fairness to Palace, they are still a compact side, and whether that's from Hodgson or whether that's from Vieira, I'm not too sure, but they are compact and they will get back into their shape. And there was a feeling that we weren't quick enough in those moments, which I think is fair enough. If I'm honest, I think there was at times the transitions could have been quicker. But again, towards the end of that first half, I think West Ham really tried to accelerate the pace of the movement. Antonio, Fornals, Benrahma working with one another. It began being a little bit more seamless. And obviously, when you play like that, and we know the way that West Ham can play, you will cause opposition teams issues. The first goal, really loved it. Honestly, I think there was a sort of case that we were in the ascendancy and that we could go and get that goal. And the interplay, obviously, Ben Rama's picked it up. Antonio's carried the ball. He was a threat in behind. I think the only thing in this game I felt like I missed was Antonio being a bit more of a focal point. We'll talk about the second goal, but it obviously comes from him being on the shoulder. And the more further up you could get him against Crystal Palace's two centre backs, in particular, Joachim Andersen, who really couldn't deal with him, whether it was in the air, whether it was on the feet, whether it was in behind. As good as a player as he is, Andersen, on the ball, I think Antonio's a different animal in that sense. So the way that goal obviously transpired, it was fantastic composure from Mickey. People might say, he was quite fortunate. I don't think so. I think I was quite impressed to see him obviously take two Palace defenders out of the game, take his time in finding the pass to Fornals. Fornals equally with that link up with him. And even when you see it on the replay, the fact that he's just played it in and he's not even looked at Fornals, he's just anticipated that he'll be there. And obviously Fornals making late runs into the box has been a little bit of his kind of characteristic in the last three games or so. So no surprise to see him slot it. When you watch it on the replay as well, the fact that Bowen and Benrahma are in the box is really crucial. And I know it won't seem like that because the goal feels like it was between two players, but the fact that Palace had to get back into shape and they were dealing with an overload and West Ham were able to get four players in the box that quickly, it meant that possibly Palace's defence weren't necessarily looking at that pass from Michail Antonio. Yes, they were drawn in, but there is that natural concern behind them. Will Benrahma get on it? Will Jarrod Bowen get on it? So it was a really well constructed goal. Second half, we started brightly as well. The first 5 to 10 minutes, in fact, everything up to the goal, I think despite the sloppiness in those transitions that West Ham have been a little bit more effective in the past few weeks or so, I didn't honestly feel that Palace could cause us any issues. Said it earlier in the video about the press on our midfield. Now, Declan struggled a little bit with Conor Gallagher. I think at times when it was a 1v1 versus him and Gallagher, I felt that for the majority of the time, Dec could deal with it. But when Palace began to press with two or three, that's when it became an issue. And I felt that West Ham then tried to bypass the midfield, get it into Mickey, get it into Jarrod Bowen, and then we'll create in the final third and cause Crystal Palace issues. The goal is super disappointing. And when I'm at the game, you feel that because of how quick everything seems to be, that Dawson is almost the direct benefactor of that goal just from passing it back. Having watched the replay, that is still very true to me. I think while Zaha probably took us a little bit off guard in terms of his pressing, not something that he did for Palace last season, Dawson has to make a simple decision there for me. He either puts it out of play or he definitely puts enough weight on the pass. And that, I know there was multiple moves, phases of play between that one moment and the goal. But again, those simple things that Dawson has to switch on for and be a little bit more composed in possession for, that's possibly why Kurt Zouma has been brought in, not even as a ball-playing centre-back, but as a more definitive player on the ball. Now, to be fair to Dawson, up until that point, other than not reading the pass from Souček in the first half, I don't think he was troubled too often. And I think I gave him the benefit of the doubt because of the Leicester game on Monday. But in this game, invariably, when you're pressing up against someone like that, you will still start to rush them. There'll be a problem with their composure. The biggest disappointment about Craig Dawson, and I'll talk a little bit about the defending, because this is an issue. And I think maybe it could have been due to energy levels. Maybe we didn't anticipate the way that Crystal Palace would play. But it is an issue, and it is something that I really want to flag up. Obviously, the goal transpires. It comes down the left-hand side. Obona deals with it well for Craig Dawson. You feel that it's gone out of play. And that's the end of the phase of play, and West Ham will clear, get back into shape. And once that happens, West Ham, in theory, should walk away and be comfortable. And if West Ham can dictate that period of play, maybe for the next 10 minutes, maybe Palace don't take the impetus to go and get the equaliser and the second goal. The problem with it I have is, you see Gallagher, he's ghosted into the box, and Dawson is in a static position. Now, I've said for a long time, you'll get Dawson on the high line, you'll get him on playing out from the back. But what we're seeing creeping into his game a little bit here against Newcastle and against Crystal Palace is he's not reading the situation around him. He's either getting too tight, and it's giving players, very versatile, tricky players, the opportunity to get a shot off. And listen, I'm not just saying this to dig him out. There will be other Premier League teams that will look at that performance and think, hang on a minute, if we're comfortable enough here and we can get the ball and we can try and even possibly even pin Craig Dawson because of how aggressive he is in getting close, then we've got a real opportunity here, particularly if we can turn him. Lukaku would be a perfect example of that. And even for me, the fact he's gone so early to block Conor Gallagher is a problem. But Fabianski, now, listen, I've always given Fabianski the benefit of the doubt, and I've never really been the one to sit here and say Areola has to come in for him right from the get-go. I've got my opinion on him, and I think long-term he'll be a better keeper, maybe slightly than Fabianski, but really disappointing goalkeeping from that aspect. He's almost anticipated that Craig Dawson is going to make that block, and therefore he's gone so tight. He's gone so near the near post. Now, if you're Conor Gallagher, the only place you can really put it, if you're thinking about trying to get a shot off on goal, is in the far corner. So why Fabianski has been so adamant that he has to go near that near post, particularly when Craig Dawson would have covered that angle, is a bit strange to me. You can let me know in the comment section, but that is a real problem, and it does come from that static defending. And I think, again, I always feel that Ogbonna and Dawson, when they're in the box, when we're in a compact defensive shape, when we're set, can deal with most things. But that does concern me. And I knew that, listen, there would be midfield runs and Palace will use MacArthur and Gallagher will get in beyond. But I didn't know I didn't anticipate Dawson to struggle that much. And after that, I felt Palace really got the impetus in terms of their press. They started pressing us really high. I think West Ham in particular started to be a little bit more conservative. It felt like that in the game, that we were a little bit hesitant to press up as a side and go and take the impetus. And therefore, the overloads that were so successful in the first half, they really started to run out a little bit. And obviously, Palace began to build into the game even more. You look at Mickey's goal, and again, I've got to talk about it because it is a brilliant finish. Of course it is. But in that half, generally speaking, definitely from when the first goal was scored, we barely created anything. Take probably the last minute of the game where arguably Antonio has to play in. Arguably, he definitely has to play inside Benrahma in that instance. And if he does that, maybe we nick it. But we'll talk a little bit about those things. Now, the second goal, Mickey's goal, is fantastic. I have no problems with it. He's turned him. It's a brilliant finish. He's actually done Guaita there because I feel that, again, like we're talking about Conor Gallagher earlier, in those positions, he's probably got to go across the keeper. The fact he's gone near post, hit it hard, hit it on the half volley, all of those different permutations has actually caused him more issues, and he hasn't quite read it. And the biggest disappointment of that game yesterday, aside from, again, for me, throwing away the points, is the fact that they scored the second goal, the equaliser, within a minute. It really, really disappoints me. There was a kind of a hesitancy in general once they'd scored that shall we go and press them or shall we sit back, because we aren't too sure. And I think a lot of that comes defensively from thinking, actually, do you know what? We won't try and be too brave here. We won't try and push up on them. Let's sit back. Let's get in our shape. But actually, by doing that and inviting that midfield from Palace on, they scored the goal. Again, it's really, really similar with Craig Dawson. It's getting too tight in that instance. And listen, it's a brilliant Cruyff turn. I don't really want to take anything away from Gallagher. I like him as a player. Again, a player in the preview that I said I would take at West Ham on loan. Probably not what he wants to do. He wants regular first team football. But Dawson, again, is getting too tight. And again, this presents the problem that actually there are more issues from a defensive point of view, not just in terms of the way that West Ham play, that Dawson is vulnerable from. And that worries me as well. Other strikers will look at it and think, hang on a minute, get tight enough. With good enough feet, we can turn him. I'm watching Adama Traore here playing for Wolves. He'll probably be looking at Craig Dawson if he's playing and thinking, hang on a minute, I know I can get tight to him and I know that I can beat my man 1v1 and stand him up. And that's where my opportunity will come. So that was really disappointing. And again, with Fabianski, people may bring Angelo in there, less so for me. I think we know the role of the two centre-backs, and it is, of course, Dawson to be the aggressor and Angelo to be the reader of the game, of which he's very good at, and uses intelligence and uses leadership in that sense. But Fabianski is, as honestly, I think he's thought that once he's turned Craig Dawson, that, again, he is going to go in that far corner. And so he's almost over-gambled on that instance rather than taking his time. Now, invariably, probably, you would go to the far corner once you've done the Cruyff turn there and where the space is fair enough. But it is just that, what's the word? It's that urgency to go and be a little bit too keen. Now, I'm not a goalkeeping expert, and I think this makes it really, really difficult. I'd love to talk to a goalkeeping coach about what their assessment of that situation is. And maybe I'm being slightly harsh, but for the first goal, I felt that Fabianski, again, didn't help us. And it is that relationship. It is Dawson and Fabianski. Now, maybe it's too early to drop Fabianski. I would like to see Areola. I think it would be nice to see that comparison and see, in those situations, we know his size, we know he's imperious in the goal, we know that he can deal with things like that because of his size and close angles. Maybe some of those goals don't happen, but really and truthfully, it does lead it leads from the defending. That's all I can look at it as. And I think once Palace got the equaliser, even though on the rerun, and it didn't feel like this at the game, but even on the rerun, we were pushing, we were trying to create, but at the game, I never felt that we were going to get that clear-cut opportunity, and that was disappointing. And we knocked and we halved and we puffed and we brought on Lanzini, and again, he was playing in almost a left-hand side role and trying to commit players. Again, that would be advisable. And I said at half-time in the game, West Ham can create a lot of opportunities in this game if we aggressively press. And I feel that the energy on the ball, off the ball, started to dwindle, to be honest. And I think that's what hurt us. I don't want to make excuses. I know Palace played midweek in the Cup. Maybe I don't know what their team was there, but given the fact that they played on the Saturday, we played on the Monday, we hadn't really rotated our squad. Maybe that led to it. But arguably, I think we would have got away with one had we been a little bit more defensively solid. So I think, look, at the end of the day, it is a point. Again, we're unbeaten so far. I think it's important to maintain momentum. I think as well with the timing of the signings. Obviously, Zuma comes in yesterday, and we're looking at Lingard and Vlasic, and we'll do a video on Vlasic because I really want to get into the stats and nitty gritty, because even I don't know what we're getting with him. And I'm led to believe we could be getting two attacking midfielders, which is really interesting, him and Lingard. So I'll discuss that a little bit in detail next. But we're still in a very good position. You get Zuma in, you get Areola in, you get these players in now. And again, in 12 days' time when we play Southampton, I'm sure we'll be rejuvenated. But we have to deal better with the press, and we have to deal better with the defensively, which is a bit of a shame because I've always, last season we were so compact and defensive, and we dealt with our box relatively well, and we dealt with the spaces. It's very difficult. And look, we try our best. Of course we do. We've got two defensive midfielders in there. We've got double pivot. So when we get back into shape, it is hard to break that. But on that game, it is individually down to Craig Dawson and arguably to Lukasz Fabianski, and that's what you want to get out of it. And the only other concern being that, and it's not even a concern, it's just where West Ham are as a club. I feel that we've progressed, and you see opposition fans, and of course us included, the football we're playing is a lot better. I don't think anyone can deny that from when Moyes come into now. So there is clear progression in that sense, but there has to be, for me, to see out games when we're not at our best, we have to be able to manage it appropriately. Whether it's taking the sting out of the game, we did it for 10 minutes against Leicester, again against a 10-man Leicester. I feel that we should try, Newcastle, I should say. But we did try and manage that Leicester game late on as well. But I don't want West Ham to be pulled into a situation where we either have to aggressively press for 90 minutes or we sit back and we invite pressure. There's got to be a medium. And maybe it's in personnel, maybe it's in coaching, maybe it's a bit of both. But I do think we would have won that game anyway. I could have had all of these quips, and I think we could have won that game anyway had we not had those defensive errors. But I'm going to leave it there. It was quite a long video. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit in terms of the individual goals. Let me know your thoughts, because obviously I think the reaction to the game, I was really downtrodden after it. I was fuming. I cannot believe we've thrown that away, and I still feel like that now. Even more so looking back at it and thinking, hang on a minute, Palace had spells and they were arguably the better team in the second half. I didn't feel that they were dominant throughout, particularly how well I thought we managed it first half. But let me know anyway, because I know there's a lot of opinions on this. Let me know your opinions on Kurt Zouma. Obviously, we signed him yesterday, 29.7 mil on a 4 or 5 year deal, I think. So again, a great signing. I've got to be honest, I did do a video on it prior to it coming out because I thought it would happen, but I'm not going to put it out because there's no point really, in truthful. It was about 2 days ago, and obviously West Ham took a long time on that. But I will do a Vlasic video, of course, on the style, the profile of the player, the stats from last season. I'll look at different things, SofaScore, FBref, etc. Like the video if you did enjoy this review. Subscribe to the West Ham Way if you're watching and you're new. Check out the usuals, the Patreon account in the description below, and the West Ham Way website. They've probably got loads of cool post-match stuff on there as well. Take care, guys. I will see you shortly for that Vlasic video, and you'll have all things West Ham later in.